Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Lomeli. I am Director of Artistic Administration at the Dallas Opera and Editor-in-Chief of the TDO Network. And I'm here super excited with my very dear friends and incredible superstars of the opera world, Miss Deanna Breiwick. Hello.
Hi.
And the one and only host also of the Quick, Mr. Michael Mays. Hello,
How y'all
Michael.
doing?
I forgot to do the plug-in for you, Deanna. She is the incredible host of Living Your Best Life with Deanna. So please tune on both Superstars TV shows for the
Special
TVO.
guest star Fritz, by the way. Don't forget Fritz. He's in every episode.
Fritz is like the Robin, right?
He's
he's-
kind of stealing the show, actually.
He's a straight man.
You know, look, we should.
It's like her Andy Richter.
Anyway, we're in this episode to actually kind of talk a little more about something that it's so abundant in our business, and it has only transformed itself. It's the same kind of ghost, I call it, or the monster under the bed is just different now in the Corona era. So, and that is the question of mental health. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of what I feel, my story, of what has been my history of mental health in the opera career or careers that I have had. You know, as many of you know, like, or hopefully many, at least more than my mother and friends. I am a Mexican tenor. I'm from Mexico City originally. I grew up in Monterrey in the north. Immigrated into the wonderful country of the United States of America in 2006, joining the Young Artist Program of Placido Domingo that I met crashing at a dinner. And I totally crashed through the kitchen to get an audition. and he gave me a wild card for joining the company, and then right after, my life changed. I joined legally the country. That's a big deal for my fellow countrymen. A month later, I was covering Rolando Villazón with René Fleming in Traviata, and 2 weeks later, I became the very first singer to win Operalia, all the prizes there. And the career boomed, the life changed. My fiance at the time left me because I was about to get famous in her eyes, right? And life changed, you know. I had a few runs that. I started to get more engaged. I was living the dream, you know, the tenor dream. I was 6'1". I had a killer high C. I was signed with Matthew Epstein. I was at the cover of Opera News as the manager, the most powerful manager in the United States. I was training under Placido Domingo. I was singing in his Grammys induction of the Hall of Fame, and living the life, recording with the Berlin Philharmonic, making a debut in the New York Times. The field thing, you know, the dream as a tenor, the Mexican tenor, it's happening. And I'm engaged at the time. I'm about to have my career year, debuts in New York, in Santa Fe, in Toronto, Berlin, a lot of new things. And right before my wedding, I start to feel a lot of pain to sing. And I started to coughing a little bit of blood, and I found myself in the cover of Opera News singing Traviata at Houston Grand Opera, and for the first time in my life, fired from a job because I couldn't sing in tune between the pain that is happening. So that's when the first time that I really started paying attention of mental health. Right? Because suddenly everything that was working at pushing, whatever difficulty I had, immigrating a language, immigrating a country. I am a computer science engineer with a master's in marketing that I left apart. I quit my pop band before. I was leaving a lot of things, and it was always about this goal of my identity of becoming one of the greatest tenors of history. That's what I wanted to be. I did want to be like Mike. I wanted to be that dominator person. I want to be one of the best that I can. And I pushed my training, I pushed everything, and it was out of my control. You finally have arrived, and you're supposed to enjoy this very treacherous life of loneliness and almost kind of like a priesthood to portray what you want to do at the level that you want to do it. And it's not about how much I'm working, it's not about how much I'm training. It's something, it was a disease, right? It was something that was blocking me that later, like where this is like a pandemic a little bit, like the once one house gets infected, every other house is on like, oh my God, the vid is in trouble, right? So suddenly, like incredible houses that I had great relationships, they were asking me to come and audition for them for gigs that I already got hired. They wanted to check how I was. I got calls from incredible companies also calling me 3 days after my very first surgery, like, hey, we need to hear you tomorrow. And I'm like, I just got out of surgery, right? Attacked, lost a lot of my income, lost a lot of my self identity on that. And I had to deal with, and I went on everything. My normal reaction for mental health was workaholism. I tried to go into CrossFit. I did a juice fast. I lost 60, 70 pounds immediately. And I was switching teachers. I was trying to try everything that I could, like fitness, technique, counseling. I went to like an Indian guru, like kind of like Deepak Chopra. I went 6 months into Mayo Clinic. I moved to Houston to try to work with Dr. King and like try to find it. And it was not in me. Like there was not a technique. It was a disease that was just there, spread and coming again. And finally in 2014, like I had a conversation where my father-in-law told my wife, said, like, we love all David and like we all understand that he's a great singer, but how he's gonna pay the bills? I have been living for a year and a half under his roof, trying to figure it out how it's gonna get ahead, right? And don't just then the pride of manhood just kick in, and I was maybe I normally don't claim myself any macho or anything, but I felt that I needed to take care of my family. And so that day I went into the living room and I said, I'm gonna go. I'm quitting. And it took me a month, but I got a job in Dallas Opera, earning like a fraction of what I was making. And it didn't matter that I had all these prizes and accolades in singing. People didn't know that I could do a Excel spreadsheet. It didn't matter that I had degrees in other things, to speak other languages. It didn't matter. My first job was booking travel at the Dallas Opera 6 years ago. And the size of the spoon of ego that I had to go, because I went from singing with Ana Maria Martinez and having like postcards from the Santa Fe Opera with both our pictures, to book the travel of Ana Maria Martinez for her coming to sing La Boheme at the Dallas Opera. With other people, not me singing, and that was hard. And it was hard that I had to deal with those things by, there was not a lot of constant attention on mental health. I started gaining a lot of weight. My wife got pregnant, and then she also started having difficulties of health that ended up with my son being born very early. And he was then for 6 months in the hospital. He was diagnosed with a leaking heart, with a pre-existing condition that we still deal today, similar to cystic fibrosis, called primary ciliary dyskinesia. And by that time, you don't see the punches. You just see like the survival of like the gasping of air. You don't see the wave. You just start trying to get the next one. By this time, my wife had a heart attack in 2011. I stopped singing in 2014. My son gets his dramatic approach in 2015. I don't earn the amount of money that I had. And how do you punch yourself in the mornings to do this? And that's when I started realizing that I had to address mental health. And I've been in counseling since. I have therapy almost every week. And I have to talk about all these issues, about how do I grieve of not performing, that now is very relevant today. How can I still claim my place in the universe by not being a singer, by not being an artist, right? How can I feed also that creative output, that shake that I get, right, of experimenting the performance, the camaraderie, the making life about myself. Because now, and the jobs that I have is about everybody else but me, So, but in a way, I transformed myself. I'm not saying that I'm out of the woods. I have a lot of sins and peccadillos, right? It is. I learned that word yesterday, and I was like, yes. I'm gonna put it away. I feel that there's a situation where I have been able to reclaim a lot of who I am, understanding that a certain part of me is not very active. It's just not dead. Actually, it's transforming itself and allowing that place to transform and to be open about what has happened. In that incredible journey, I actually met both of you in different parts of my life. And both of you, and that was when I wanted to bring you into this episode. I had moments that you didn't notice, but you both changed my life in very particular ways. When I met Mike, I have seen him transform himself. Actually, Mike was one of the very first people that I met when I immigrated America, and he was a different person too, right? Um, and I met Mike at a moment where my son was in the hospital, and he was doing Great Scott with Great Jake Hagee and Joyce and everybody, and we didn't have a relationship, but somehow like he came to see my son in the NICU, and I found myself like, this dude barely knows him. Like we have a conversation or two. In those conversations, he told me everything about his life immediately, with a candor and a passion for living, of just grasping the next breath. That I was like, I want to be like Mike, right? Different Mike, a different Mike. And then I met you, like I have been a fan of both of you. I have been a fan of your work. So as a casting director, as an artist, I always track you, right? But then we finally have a conversation. We book a lunch in a Mexican restaurant that calls itself Mexican. Yeah, in Des Moines. No offense. No offense. But anyway. And I had one of the most transformative conversations with Miss B. Like I was like, wow, like how can you be this like into your own like self with everything that you just told me about your journey, right? And those transformative moments, that I found today, in certain moments in life, and everybody can tell your story with the amount of openness that you guys want to be. Is I just I want you guys to tell a little bit about those moments where you find yourself at a breaking point, that the only way out it is to get ahead, like to move forward, to accept the change, to surrender to those things. And everybody can use different vocabulary at different aspects, but I think that the resilience and the teachings of coping, resilience, and waking up every day are so needed today for our fellow people, that our fans, our audience, and our community. And we're good at communicating feelings. So guys, whoever you want to go next.
What do you think, Deanna? Should we go boy, girl, boy?
Good.
Well, thank you for sharing, David. Let's see where to begin. I guess, my whole life I've actually been drawn to the adventure, the exploration of mental health. And I find as I get older and life becomes fuller and more complicated, it becomes more and more essential in my life. And I look at it as like a toolbox and coping skills, and checking in with myself and being like, what do I need right now? And I remember there was one point I remember years ago where, so I think like many of us artists, I'm highly sensitive, highly empathetic. And I remember I was at this point where I just felt so overwhelmed with emotion. And I thought, how can somebody feel this much and like survive this? How am I experiencing this much emotion? And how am I living through this? And I remember I actually like just Googled that. And this book, The Highly Sensitive Person, came up. And I began to look into that. And, you know, I realized that I would identify as a highly sensitive person, which isn't just emotional. It's like all of my senses are very heightened. And I think a lot of us who are highly sensitive find our way into the arts. Because what do we do for a living? We emote for a living. We delve into these lives of characters and we connect with them and we bring them to life, not with judgment, but with understanding. And so I have to say, you know, sometimes I say, you know, I grew up very, very sheltered, and I stayed that way really into my late 20s till I moved to Europe. And there were
a new world.
yeah. And there were rumblings beforehand, but I was so deeply involved with my life, that life. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I got to Europe, I finally felt the freedom to kind of to find myself. And that rocked my world. Like everything I knew, I felt was falling away. And I was even trying to stop it and I couldn't. And I felt that process of like being reborn, and I could not stop it. And it was terrifying. And I went through several years of really being all over the place. Deep depression, nihilism, I mean, really, really dark places. And I was also living in a foreign country, feeling alone. And I started working with a therapist while I was there. And he was a Mexican American living in Zurich. And he was like tough on me. And I remember that first session we had, he basically told me, he was like, you have two choices. He goes, either choices are tough. You can stay with where you're at and just keep, I mean, honestly, kind of living, not living a life, like stay in that place where you're not living your truth. That's uncomfortable. Or get uncomfortable and take the path to move forward. And once I realized that there was discomfort either way, and that one path was not productive and would continue this cycle of anxiety, depression, feeling paralyzed, and another was productive. And so then I went into a place where I was having to define my values. What is my life apart from any sort of institution, from other people's expectations for me? Who am I? And what are the values that are guiding my life? So that kind of set me on the path to where I am today. And I'm in therapy regularly. I remember I took a break last year, and sometimes I think it's good to take a break and just kind of metabolize things on your own. Yeah. But I got to a place where last year I was on the road 11 out of 12 months. And it was wearing on me. Like those of us who have lived that life, it's a thrill. And oh man, it has its challenges. And I was just feeling the exhaustion of it. I was feeling depths of loneliness like I'd never experienced before, even though I have a full, rich life of relationships, but just being on the road and living out of Airbnbs by myself all the time, I was experiencing so much loneliness. And so I got back into therapy in December, and I find that that's pretty essential for me. And again, it's going back to, I feel like that's helping me build that repertoire of coping mechanisms, where then I can take care of myself better. And I think right now, as you were saying, there's so many similarities to this season of life that we are all in. And yes, coming back to things like identity, a change of pace. You know, I'm living on the road all the time, and now I'm living back in my parents' house. That's an adjustment. Being a singer, you know, and like being, you know, out there working and doing my thing, and now being home, and like, and so I think it's causing all of us to look a little deeper. No, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a new series with the Dallas.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Um,
It gives me a reason not to have to talk to my parents. It's great. Mom, I'm doing my shows.
do my shows, yeah.
Leave me alone. I don't want any cookies, Mom. I told you.
Dad, I'm surprised my dad hasn't walked in here yet, like bringing my dog in, like, hey, is it time to feed Fritz?
Dad, could you put on some pants? God, it's our show.
Yeah, so there's like some major adjustments that all of us are going through. And yeah, and it hits on those core elements of who we are and how we function. And I think it's waking us all up a little bit.
It's kind of funny, like just listening to both of you guys talk and sort of just trying to absorb your journey and what you've gone through. And one sort of theme that I was picking up on is this idea of being driven at such a frenetic pace for so long. And it drives you and drives you and drives you until something sort of gives. And that giving, that break, that last little straw is the catalyst that gave each one of us sort of the impulse to sort of begin the process of rebirth. I don't say, you know, it's sort of, you know, I grew up super religious, missionary Baptist. And one of the things that we had in our faith was this idea of once saved, always saved, you know. And the way you got saved was you just walk, like at the end of the church service, the preacher would do an altar call and you come down.
Yeah.
And then you accept Jesus into your heart, and then everything's different. And you were reborn, born again. And I understand this concept so well. And I don't think this concept is in all of our religions of rebirth and being born again into a new body and a new mind and a new spirit. I don't think it's an accident. And I think if you're a sociologist or you a theologian, you can understand that this is all of us. This is a universal story. And, you know, hearing you guys talk about, you know, you were living the dream, right? And then the dream changed.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was the catalyst for pursuing your mental health. You know, Deanna, when you said, I figured out like who I was and why I was doing this. You used therapy to sort of make that journey. I totally understand that because, you know, for most of, like when I started doing this, I mean, you know, like what's great about this group is we have such a diversity of pathways to get to where we are. Listening to David talk about, you know, his sort of like this meteoric rise, you know, to fame. I mean, to a level that I'll probably never get to. You know, it's amazing to see and to go back and to look at those old YouTube clips and everything, and to know how awesome David was. That you understand sort of the trauma that it must have been to have to give that up. And I had, you know, I won't go into details because a lot of my story is tied to the business, and a lot of the trauma that I've endured, and that has been the catalyst for my change has happened sort of not in the shadows, you know. And what's funny is that I understand, David, when you talk about the shame of austerity. It's difficult when you don't come from like privilege or you know, comfort, or even that, you know, and you always feel like you're sort of outside, and then to have that sort of laid so bare and presented to you like, this is what you need to do. This is your failing. This is how can you provide? I understand that. And my trauma was similar, and it drove me to the point where, you know, when I had mine, I just passed my 10-year, in 2019, I passed my 10-year suicide survivor anniversary. So my decade away from like the worst day of my life, you know, and all the things, Lovey, that you were talking about that led you to that point, and all the things Deanna was talking about that led her to her point. If you sort of take off the minor details and look at the essential nature of those problems, I've been there, and that's what I did. I got to the end where I wasn't doing well professionally. I was working at the smallest opera companies you've never heard of, and making like hundreds per performance for 2 or 3 performances. I was working part-time, painting houses and working at Steppenwolf Theater and all this other stuff. And sort of right around 2008, 2009, I had a big old trauma just kind of fall on my lap. And it was sort of like, you know, life ending to me, because it was like everything I had thought about, the way my life was going to go, just ended. And I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was doing. And I hadn't yet found my reason for doing this. You know, I thought, I just want to get a nice steady job as a good, solid singer. And then if I can get one of those good jobs and make a lot of money at it, and then buy a house and all this stuff. And that was my plan. And then I got to this moment when all of those plans just got obliterated. And I was like, well, now what do I do? And I was looking at being in a business where I was not respected. I didn't have any juice. I didn't have any momentum. I had just gotten like 1 or 2 little things here, and I kept getting these little ratifications from the business, like, hey, you know, just stay in it just a little bit longer. And I was like, okay, business, I'll stay in it. And then I would wait. It would get terrible and bleak and terrible, and something awful would happen. I'd be like, I'm almost out. They'd be like, hey, one more thing. There's this great contract. It's going to be could be the next big opportunity. And you just suck me back in. But at that point in my life, I was not. It didn't seem like it was going to go anywhere. And I knew I had something to say, but I didn't know what it was. And faced with my entire ego death and identity death, which I think just listening to you guys talk, you understand that moment. I didn't know what I was and what I was doing. And for me, the only way out seemed to just call it a day, because there's no way that I could ever overcome the deficit that I've come into emotionally, psychologically. And the fight to get out of it would be so much harder. And I knew that I had to, like, is that moment, like David, you were saying something earlier, and I can't remember what it was, but it was like, in that moment, like facing the abyss with my, like, the shotgun that I inherited from my family, like in my mouth, ready to go. I had to change. And it wasn't a God moment, nothing like that. It was literally the idea of, what about my family? What will happen to them? My parents will have to come in here and find me, probably. And then everybody will say, yeah, see, we always knew. So what's funny is the thing that got me through the catalyst was almost spite. Because I was going to, okay, fine. You're going to take everything from me, opera business, that's fine. I'll show you that I belong in this business. I'll find a door that nobody has opened, and I'll go through it, and I'll make my own little place. And that's what got me through it. And at first it was for spite. I was like, you're not going to, literally when I turned around and turned away from the darkness, I had to make a choice that I was going to be in this career. I was going to be in this business. I was going to dedicate myself to it because I had to be successful. If not, oh my God, how terrible would that be? It was all for nothing. And that's when I turned around and I started looking for a different reason for doing this than what I had before. And that's when I discovered Opera with a Conscience. That's when I discovered contemporary American brismo opera. And instead of going to therapy, which I should have done, should have done, sorry. Instead of, should have gone to therapy. Didn't go to therapy. It's time. Yeah. But what I did was, a lot of the things you do in therapy, I did on the stage because, you know,
Mhm.
the great thing, I always say this about the stage. We can do things on the stage that if you did in public, you get thrown in jail for.
Yeah.
And it is the safest place on the world to have an emotional reaction because
Yeah.
no one's going to say that's wrong because you're the character, you're experiencing it. So you get to have that
Yes.
emotion. So yeah, I should have had therapy. I didn't, but I was so fortunate when I found Opera with a Conscience, when I found Dead Man Walking. And I've told the story so many times and everybody knows it, but when the woman told me that it changed the way she thought about the man who murdered her son or murdered her daughter, everything changed for me. I thought, well, opera can do this. And I had been, you know, working at Steppenwolf Theater in Chicago and sort of seeing what theater could do. And for me, the inflection point was the suicide, was all that darkness, all that thing, turning it around, saying, fuck you, I'm going to be here whether you want me or not. You're going to have to kick me out of this business. And I kept waiting for it to happen. I was like, seriously, guys? You let me get away with that? Sweet. Okay. Well, I guess I'm here now. So,
It's really funny that if you mind, like I
please,
just want to kind of first of all, I'm grateful that you both share your stories and your inflection points and the lessons learned, you know. But I think that, you know, one of the things that now I want to be very conscious is that first of all, most of our demographic that is watching our content today, you know, without excluding anybody that would come into this episode, but we do have, you know, demographics of 18 to 44 people.
mm-hmm.
You know, they are a lot of the people that follow you, for example, Deanna, the ones that write you and follow you, they are like uh, they're students, they're current students, they're people like graduating school. I know there's a lot of baritones that have followed you, and God knows that because of the work that I have, I interact with a lot of young people that were about to start into a YAP, or they're just starting an ensemble, or they're in the beginning of the years. Like I think that we have to take care of everybody in this business, but a lot of the people that they were not yet destined to find the hardship of the business. It just came to find them at any moment where they are,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because the main thing of the business, right? Or if we go very, very, very like simplistic on this, is that there's no performance. There's no stage. There's no talking with the fellow aliens. You know, one of the biggest thing that for me was difficult is that when I normally walk into a rehearsal room, everybody knew that I was a good singer, so they accepted me. Even if they didn't know me, they respected my singing. They respected the craft. They respected you know, you see an alien from the other alien, I call it, you know, like
dude, so many of our
got,
conversations though are about money, right? Right now, they're like, get paid, get paid, get paid.
Yeah.
That's not what I fucking miss, man. Like I would do this. I have done this for nothing. Like I would do this for nothing. I love it that much.
It's that, you know, community, that level of acceptance, and
I miss my safe space. I miss my collegiality. I miss talking to people. I miss creating something. I miss that magical moment between two people when you both see something like at the same time, but it's nobody's idea first. So like, boom.
Magic.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, thank God for this network that we get to do this kind of stuff because it sort of fits in that a little bit.
Well, that's the main thing that I want to say, you know, like I am a living proof. And I don't want to claim that my path, you know, like God knows that I pay my penitence of everything. And I know that maybe the teaching was that happiness was not in just enjoying the sound of my own voice, literally. It was actually silencing me enough to listen to everybody else's. And then
I mean, that trauma that you had, you talk about these things that it totally changed your identity because you went from being this big star, you walk in there, and then you had to sort of, boy, you had to take a big old dose of humility.
Oh,
and boy, I understand that, boy. Ooh, man, that hurts. But you talk about being taught and teaching, like all that stuff, that humility, all that stuff, the austerity, the humility, those survival techniques, boy, those are going to sure come in handy now, aren't they?
That's the thing that I was going to say. The thing that I find the best of this journey is two things. Number one, because I already lost everything once.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
This time I want to do it my way, like Frank said, right? Like Jake Heggie signs his emails, you know, it's like, I'm gonna do it the way that I should be doing it. I'm not gonna do it like Pav. I'm not gonna do it like Domingo. I'm not gonna do it like Fabiano. I'm not gonna do it like Costello. Like the people that I compare myself, contemporary or legendary, like that push me for the next thing, competitive. Because I have that competitive stream in everything that I had. That I wanted to go for X, Y, and Z in my personal life or certain looks, like. When I started even coming to the office, I thought that I needed to work in a certain way, and I felt so constricted, so different. And then eventually, when I started wearing the shoes that I wanted to do, the shirts that I wanted to be, the everything that I could do, right, and to feel myself in this, it's when I started to really coming into my own. When I stopped pretending, when I stopped saying, you know, yes, I'm Mexican. Yes, I have an accent. Yes, I have a kid with special needs. Yes, I stopped singing. Yes, I still train every day. You know, like yes, but now it's different things. Yes, I go to therapy. Yes, I go to all these things that I have to do. It's when I actually feel that the genetic disposition to feel the sensitivities, that thing that you said about I'm a highly sensitive person, and that doesn't change just because I cannot sing, right? Or I can sing a different way, whatever. Like the thing is, just like when we are changing keys and transforming a cacophony of sounds into this multi-harmonic sound that we call music, you can transform yourself. And that is what is happening today. Like we're forcing to go into a way that's like, how can we put this immense sensitivity, immense creativity, immense grit, immense sense of discipline, and most of the thing is to do it right for personal and emotional growth to other communities and other human beings. How can we use that now to survive Corona in classical music?
But can I ask Deanna that? Because like one thing you talked about being a highly sensitive person and the emotions, like I literally wrote down when you were talking about I said the tyranny of emotion. Yeah. And it's like emotions. Oh, I just got like my heart just got low because it's like emotions can be a tyrant or they can be a servant to us.
And exactly. A servant, and even like a superpower.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
You know? And I think that was my transformation there, because I felt, tyrannized by my emotions. I felt overwhelmed by them. I felt at their mercy. And I started to learn how, and actually a lot of it had to do with setting boundaries. And it also had to do with going back to what you're saying, acceptance, like, and just accepting myself exactly as I am, because I think I almost despised that part of myself and I saw it as weakness. And also I had been taken advantage of in some ways, along my journey, just because of my sensitivity. And I started to transform that into a superpower. And that came from accepting who I am and accepting that as a strength. And with all of us, we have our light, bright parts, and on the flip side, there's a shadow. And I feel we all have that. And I felt like with this sensitivity, it has its shadow, and I was living in its shadow instead of stepping into its light and being like, this is such a superpower, and it helps me to connect with people. It helps me to feel people, where I can meet with somebody and know what they're going through. And it helps me as an artist. And so now I look at it as like one of my gifts that I can bring to the world, my heart. and this sensitivity that I have, that it is one of my strengths to bring to the world.
Yeah. I look at it as like mine is because of, you know, who I am. I've got like this raging pit bull on the end of a like 10-weight chain, right? And it's just like all the time I'm always holding them back. And then every once in a while I'll just say, go get him, boy. And that's, you know, that's it. You know, it's being able to take, instead of having this out of control. I mean, so I love metaphors because that's you know, I'm a visual person. Having this out of control dog that's attacking people going crazy. You got him on a leash. And if you need to be protected, you can let him go. But for most of the time, that sucker's on a leash, you know?
Yes.
You know, guys, I think the lessons that we have here is that, you know, first of all, a good introspection, a good pause moment that sometimes comes with things that we didn't want to, you know, like it was maybe an illness, or it was a move to another, you know, zip code very far from where you were, or
enormous worldwide pandemic.
Yeah, or a gun or anything, or here now it's a pandemic, right?
Yeah.
But I think for our audience to bring it into a circle of what do we want, and I think that, you know, I love in our content that we always leave with something, with some kind of homework or something that they can see, like if they extract this for Enviralize it for 3 minutes, right, in a 3-minute clip, I would say that you know, like the lessons that we learn, and help me to put this list together. If you go into a moment of crisis and you have to face yourself, that's the real thing. You know, it's the unfortunate thing is that normally we see our reflection, especially as artists, in reviews, in fees, in cast pages, in am I in the coalition? Am I not in the coalition? Do I sing in a level 1 house? How many people want to have their Metropolitan Opera card as validations that they are worth it? You know,
used to.
You know, and
don't want
and can I add that? I think, you know, when you were talking about walking into a room and feeling, I think you were describing, because of what you'd accomplished and how you identified yourself, you felt belonging.
Exactly.
And all of us have these fronts up of how we identify ourselves, and that's how we feel we belong. And when that's stripped away and you ask, I had a friend recently ask me, because we were having one of our deep conversations, who are you? And I was like, I didn't know how to answer that, because the first thing that pops into my mind is, I'm from Seattle, I'm an opera singer. But she was asking, who are you? And I think to recognize that we have belonging, even with all of these modes of identification removed, and to believe in that.
And you know what is so crazy, that's what I love the experiment of TDO Network, that at the end of the day, without actually looking forward we still are getting a metric of belonging. You know, you guys see your content, and even in the smaller, like whatever share of episode that you guys have, and you have now a few up, there's no fewer of 15,000 people per episode that watched it or saw it. That's sometimes like more people that we saw in 4 months in an opera house. They didn't give you the clap right now. They just press a like or they shared it. But for when I see what you guys have reached and the people that have seen your faces, probably right now, you know, like each of you have reached 6-figure faces of people that you don't get in a year, but they have seen you. They are consuming your art. It's just not in key and it's not in harmony, but it's more actually in key and in harmony with what the people are suffering and going through today, right?
I mean, it's the same. It's the same thing. What we're doing now is the same thing. It's just we're not making music. but it's to the same end. You know, it's to the
Mm-hmm.
same end. I don't know how to put it any clearer than that, but
No, because you said opera with conscience. I think that when we create
Mm-hmm.
art, and it can be painting, it can be
yeah,
dancing, but when it goes into that high gear, those moments where we as performers feel it, those zen
Yeah.
moments where it's like everything click in,
Mm-hmm.
everything was there, what happened between us, like those type of things that are also very difficult to manage, and we can do an episode about too, because when you come down from those rushes.
Oh yeah.
okay. So next episode of The Quick,
That's episode 2.
David and Deanna on coming down from
Let's do
Awesome
it.
Connection. I'm serious
Topic.
because that's a really good topic.
That's an
It is.
It's a whole other topic, and that's a topic. I mean, literally, the come down. Look, like I've said this before. When we talk about opera, we use addiction terminology. Since we're talking about mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
We talk about opera. You got hooked. Opera hooked me. I got hooked. You talk about it like a drug. And right now, every opera singer in the world is a strung out junkie because they took our drug away, and we can't even. Dang it! And the dealers are all dry, and there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to get right now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's important to talk about it that way too. Come in on you after you have one of those incredible nights, and you're way up here, and then you are shaking hands, and everyone's like, "My God, I forgot that I was in an opera. What is this? Oh my God!" And then you go home alone.
Yep.
To a empty apartment in a foreign country,
That's why
and
I
there's
got.
nothing around to do. Well, you gonna go out and party? Well, then you can't sing the next day. So there's that.
Look,
So coming down, baby. That's a great title for it. Coming down.
We're gonna do episode 2 clearly, because I think that we have. First of all, the hard part is that we just sang our Così trio right now, because I felt there were moments, like the pupils of the three of us, and we're nodding, and we're like, "Amen, hallelujah."
There it is.
Right.
See, that's the quick. That's the moment.
We just made music. We just had that trio. We just had this thing, and now we have to go and eat our cookies or find our thing of how we come down from this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I wanna close, because we're running out of time, and
David, can I have a closing thought?
yes, tell me
before you do your closing thought. I think it will inform it.
Yeah.
Arden Scott, the main character of Great Scott, is speaking to Tommy Taylor, who is her future or former and then future lover's son.
Mm-hmm.
And he's Arden Scott, the main character of Great Scott, which we did at Dallas Opera, is on stage speaking to Tommy Taylor, who's the son of her former and future lover, who's the main part of the story. And Tommy has been given a role in this this huge opera that's going to bring back Arden's career. And he's choked up, and he can't sing, he can't talk, he can't speak. And ever since Corona has come along, listening to Joyce's voice in my head has just been over and over again, her singing this aria. But she says to Tommy, she says, "I get scared, Tommy. I think I can do all these things that people expect of me. Things I want to do and do them well. And that terrifies me. Am I good enough? What if I'm not? Everybody up here knows that feeling, every single person. But then I find the courage, the strength I forgot was there. And I open my mouth and sing. And when I sing, I let the whole world know who I am. I'm Arden Scott. Who are you?" And so when you said, I look it up, when you said, I needed to know who are you? Who am I? When the person was asking, who are you?
Yeah.
You're Deanna Breiwick. Who are you?
Mike, thank you, because that is so powerful. I would just add one thing. You never stop being who you are, even in silence.
Yeah.
I sing as loud and as pretty in my brain. And I want to urge all of you who are watching us today for inspiration, for entertainment, for amusement, to support your friends and colleagues, or the experiment that TDO Network is that inner gene, that inner necessity to express yourself, don't let it die because Corona is out there. Don't let it die because there's no stage and no light. Like, everybody can make it ourselves. And this is the beauty of the age that we are. We're forced to be with the people that are our bloodlines or our chosen families, or sometimes just there's people that are alone and you have to make your own families through the screen. But it's forcing you to actually come out of your cocoon and say, here I am, and say something and raise your voice. And I would say, like, this is the people that are here today in TDO Network are here for you because we want to make you feel that you matter, because opera matter, and we're proud to be part of what opera actually means. That is to make better human beings for everybody that touches. So
That's beautiful.
anyway, thank you guys for joining me. I love these two humans a lot. I hope you love them too now. And well, so we have a date for a second round, no?
Yeah,
I
let's
guess
do
we
it.
do.
Guys, it's always a pleasure. I'm sad we're not grilling and drinking whiskey together, but I send you all my love, and please tune in on the Quick with Mike on Thursdays, living your best life with Miss D on Tuesdays, and I see you next Saturday for Creative Conversations. So anyway, this is David Lomeli from TDO Network. Bye.